Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday, Dr. Jason Dean, Braid TV, your source for health, freedom, and knowledge. It's Tuesday. That means Chris Heaven with his hand in a camera. That's what. What's up, buddy?
Just adjusting my screen. How you
No,
doing?
that's all right. Are you? What kind of? Do you use a camera on top of your screen, or do you have like a?
It's just the built-in screen in my MacBook Pro, or camera, I should say,
That's
in the
impressive.
screen.
That's impressive. It's a pretty good screen for filming. I figured it was a higher end camera.
No, higher-end laptop.
What is new? How's life in survival dispatch land?
Man, it's busy with all the crazy stuff that's been going on. It's just been nonstop. I mean, we did a live broadcast last night on the powder that was sent to Donald Trump Jr., and there's barely any coverage out there. I mean, you'll find it in the usual sources like Breitbart and InfoWars, but mainstream media, not a word. So we have people commenting on the live stream that we're doing. How are we supposed to believe this? I don't see this on Fox News, blah, blah, blah. That kind of
Really?
crap. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have fans of your show who are not like. Do you think they're fans? Do you think they're bots? Do you think they're just haters? Or
No, I think there are people who are on the YouTube homepage and see that we have a live
okay.
stream going on, and then they click into it to see what's going on. Some of them just click into it to be assholes and run their mouth. Not an unusual thing.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the anthrax video last night, I got it. Like I sent it to you at 4 minutes after it had been like published. Like he talked about this. This is not good.
Yeah. So Mike Sterling, of course, is an expert in all this counterterrorism stuff. Anthrax is typically grown in soil. It's a biotic, and therefore it has a yellow tinge to it. Only like a really sophisticated lab can produce anthrax, make it ghost white, and it's usually really, really small quantities, like small test tubes. So the people jumping right away suggesting that it was anthrax, probably not correct. I mean, we haven't seen what the lab diagnosis is, but if it's anything at all, most of these cases, nothing, right? It's just to spread fear, just to scare the
Right.
shit out of people. But if it is something and it's pure white, highly probable that it'd be fentanyl, something like that.
Nicolette asked a good question. Why is Don Jr. opening his own mail? That is a good question. Um, yeah, it's. I had a interview this morning with on some other radio show too, and you know, people need to turn off the news. Why are they watching the news, right? But I mean, that's still the majority of people out there. That's what they're doing.
Well, I mean, a good example is that if we can reveal our sources, we do, but sometimes we're put in the middle where if we reveal a source with specific information, then it puts their livelihood in danger. But last week, for example, when the cell phone networks went down, that was 100% a cyber attack. And that is confirmed from more than one source that we have inside various DoD cyber defense and offensive teams. But then AT&T comes out with a spiel. Well, it was software related, really. So if AT&T had a software problem, why did extremely large portions of T-Mobile and Verizon go down with them? And then people say, well, because it's shared infrastructure. Okay, well then how come there were towers that have shared infrastructure with all three carriers on them, but only one went down at a time? Explain that. It doesn't matter. I mean, people who believe in the mainstream media will believe in the bullshit like AT&T spewed last week. Their network is decrepit, it's weak, it's fragile. So they're deflecting by saying, oh, this wasn't a cyber attack. But worse than that is that there's a significant amount of customer data was stolen last week as well. So this just goes into the database that the Chinese, Communist Party is compiling on Americans. They're gathering information from people's phones by them installing TikTok, and they're compiling databases. So if and when it comes down to a war with China, they have intelligence on us, here in America. Like we have nothing, to compare on them.
Starlink, also 358 satellites went offline. And I don't remember what time he said it, but Elon either said before, I think he said before, something to the effect of, this is a test.
Yeah, I mean, there were a bunch of simultaneous things happening, and it happened again last night, actually, as far as pharmacies are concerned. So the
Mm-hmm.
networks that connect, MD authorizations for scripts as well as discount codes and all that sort of stuff, that went down at the same time that the cell networks went down, and it went down again last night, even worse than the time before. And they've made no bones on that one. They flat out said it's a cyber attack, but it's hard to say what the motivation is. I think that part of this is kind of that shot across the bow to say, when we do decide to take back Taiwan, don't mess with us or we'll turn your world upside down. That's kind of what my gut instinct is. Uh, I don't think that there's any other, valid reason for them to do it. Like I said, this is more of a warning shot. That's the way I see it. Definitely wasn't a CME or a solar flare because those
Well,
types of phenomena do not discriminate. So for
so,
starters, a CME hits the ionosphere, right? And it affects the entire globe. It's
right.
not isolated. Like the Carrington event in 1859 was a global event. And a solar flare may be regional, but it's not going to discriminate. So you certainly wouldn't end up with AT&T going down and somebody else staying up simultaneously. Just wouldn't happen.
Interesting you say that because I watch a couple different people from the earthquake phenomenon as well, watching where earthquakes are, watching shifting of planetary stuff. And there's a guy who swears this is all solar flares.
He's wrong. He's
But
flat out wrong.
I have a Marine guy behind the scenes who's in open source intelligence, and he's like, this is here. This is exactly what he said about. Let me find it. He said about solar flares that they're they're a real phenomenon. Of course, it can move radio stations 50 miles out, standard range, nominal effects. Satellites are typically shielded. Solar flares can make your favorite TV station or radio shift reception areas worst. I know they can do, but today is interestingly timed. So he's like, he basically is saying like, sure, you can have phenomena of solar flares, but that doesn't do what happened on Monday. That's not even logical. So he goes, this is literally cyber ransom attack type situations.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing is like I just said, there's no discrimination between one network and another from a solar flare. Number two, the solar flares that hit the earth earlier that day affected Europe. They had nothing to do with North America. So again, if it's a CME, it's global. It's going to affect
Right.
the entire world. But if it's a solar flare, it will affect a region. And where those solar flares intersected the Earth was Europe and Africa. Had nothing to do with us here. So anybody who's saying this has anything to do with CMEs and solar flares is just flat out wrong. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. Period. So so you come back to you can either be a lemming and believe the AT&T, bullshit story, or you can accept the reality of the situation. I mean, the Chinese have bragged that they've compromised 24 major networks in America that could turn our world upside down. And again, there's your warning shot right there. On top of which, again, just to repeat myself, we have firsthand intel. This was a
Right.
Chinese cyber attack on AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and networks that support pharmaceutical transfers of prescriptions and discount codes.
Yeah, we actually saw the that message was sent to me too. We saw pharmaceutical companies getting hit, or pharmaceutical like dispensaries or whatever it was. Basically, people having trouble getting pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, and it happened again last night, even worse than it happened
Did it
last week.
really?
Yeah, yeah. So,
They're
I mean,
prepping us, man. They're prepping us.
well, that was a good word, key word there. We've been telling people forever and a day, beyond the basics like food, water, and shelter. It's the three basic components of prepping. and ammo, which would be another component, is your meds. What do you do with people who have to take meds? Not the ones who don't have to take them,
Yeah, no. The
but
people
are
legitimately on
addicted. But
meds that are keeping their lives saved, insulin, things like that.
yeah, I mean, you can argue how they got to the point in their life where they require these
Totally different
medications,
story.
but what you can't argue is the fact that they're in a condition that they have to have these meds to survive, or bad things happen, like their heart explodes and shit like that. So if you don't have those, and all hell breaks loose, what are you going to do? I mean, your choices are pretty slim. Are you going to go and try loot a, a pharmacy, or are you going to just give up and die? And it's a shitty situation to be in, actually, because most insurance companies limit you to a 30-day supply. Best case scenario, they might mail order 90-day supply to you, but that doesn't cover the whole spectrum of pharmaceuticals.
Right.
So they're purposely making people very reliant on the system. It's hard to stockpile meds. Easiest way to do it is actually to find a pharmacy outside of the country, and they're all pretty good. Like, I do have some experience with this. You buy them out of the country, they ship them. Rarely do they get intercepted at the border, but if they do get intercepted at the border, you'll get a letter that says, we seized, this on such and such a date. You just send a copy of that to the pharmacy overseas, and they'll resend it at no charge.
Really?
Yep.
They're making it so damn cheap, aren't they?
It's ridiculously cheap.
Like pennies, less than pennies.
It's like, the scariest drug in the world here, ivermectin, right? This stuff costs pennies.
How much did it cost you?
Literally pennies. Like, I think one strip, like a dozen tablets like that, was like $1.99 or something like that. It's ridiculous. This is why the mainstream media railed against ivermectin, because it's super effective at killing viruses. It's been ingested over 15 billion times by people. There's nothing dangerous about it whatsoever. It is used for veterinarian purposes. It's the active ingredient in HeartGuard for dogs, so they don't get heartworm.
Do you know
This
why?
kills viruses. Number one use of this for humans has been to kill off waterborne viruses like Giardia when you travel out of the country. In Africa, this is like a daily thing for many Africans because their water supply is so crappy. And so in Africa, you have the least number of COVID jabs, the highest adoption rate of ivermectin, and an infinitesimal number of people who got COVID. So
do you know why? Do you know why it kills viruses?
I don't understand the mechanics behind it, but I know that it's effective.
It's actually super simple. Merck actually admitted to it. I have a Merck manual around here somewhere. I have a Merck manual that shows it, and then they had it online, and after I said it a few times, they scrubbed it. Merck admitted that all viruses are parasites. It's right in their literature.
Makes a lot of sense.
And why do animals not get cancer? They get cancer, but not nearly as much as humans do, because most of animals are prevented against parasites. Parasites are essentially the number one cause of cancer, and that's why that's why they want nobody knowing about this.
How many studies have recently been released on the efficacy of ivermectin for treating multiple forms of cancer? There's dozens of them. Literally dozens.
The whole pharmaceutical industry would plummet when people find out. The cancer is the number 2 killer in the world.
I've got thick blood, have for years, so occasionally go and have a phlebotomy done, and it's done at a cancer clinic, and that place is slammed. So you sit in a room of these poor people being treated with IV chemo. Everybody's in their recliner sitting there for Lord knows how long, because I go in, they do the phlebotomy, I'm gone. But it's a racket, man.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. It's
to say the least.
it's a freaking train wreck. It really is. So I was having a discussion last week, which I'm trying to wrap my head around, and it's very possible that I'm just missing it, but that's okay if I'm wrong. Everyone is talking about the border crisis, right?
Yes.
and people coming in. This is my issue. Freaking every American has a phone, right? Every American. Like it's disgusting at this point. Even people who shouldn't have a phone have a phone. 20 to 40. I'm going to say 20 to 40 million. My number could be off. If you have a better number, that's fine. I know some people are sharing some videos, but where are the videos? I mean, Americans at this point will take selfies and videos of their stupid food just to get like a like on social media. Why are there no videos of these people? I mean, I'm not seeing them, but I could be wrong. Are you seeing videos of this mass infiltration?
Oh, hell yeah.
Where are you seeing? Because I don't know. I need to be educated on it because I'm not seeing it.
X. I mean, there are constant videos. Like before Eagle Pass was shut down, there are multiple videos of
on the border.
of
Yes. Are we seeing it in the cities though?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So just
Okay, I
go
haven't
to
seen
X.
them.
So we recorded an episode of Survival Dispatch News on Saturday that's going to air tomorrow. And so we had Keith Graves, 30-year SWAT team leader, drug interdiction specialist, gang expert, Mike Sterling, counterterrorism expert, and master EOD tech. We had Tactical Carl, who is a sheriff's deputy in the Houston area. And we had a guy named Jeff MD, who was a CIA operative for 26 years, spent a good portion of his career in Texas working on the border and, again, dealing with gangs. So here's a quick one. The 5 scumbags who attacked the 2 NYPD 3 weeks ago, 3 of them are part of a Venezuelan gang that's joined at the hip to MS-13. And so if you specifically look for things like illegal immigrant gang activity, we did this thing where in 15 minutes we came up with 24 videos on that episode to say, there you go, here it is. So there was a guy, for example, walking down the street, sucker punching one woman after another. The last one is sitting, I think I may have mentioned this even last week, she's got her face in her weapon of mass distraction, roundhoused her, knocked her out. But there's countless videos of this happening, and it only happens under 2 circumstances. Either they pick on the weak, so women, children, and the elderly, or they gang up on somebody. You know, it's like a 5 to 10 plus on one sort of scenario. But yeah, there's a ton of video of this stuff out there. I mean, holy cow, look at poor Laken Riley last week, University of Georgia. The illegal invader who killed her while she went out for a run was thrown out of the country in 2022 for breaking the law, snuck back in again, of course, catch and release. And here we go, murdered a young nursing student in Georgia. It's horrendous, man. This stuff is happening day in, day out, and it's not being reported properly by the mainstream media. You can find it on X. And then the next part to this, which is just mind-numbing how evil these people are, is that many of these immigrants, whether they be black or Hispanic, are being booked into the system as white Caucasians.
No way.
Yeah, way. It's bad. Big numbers. Big numbers, trying to skew what things look like. So
I'm not laughing at I'm laughing at the ridiculousness of this at this point.
So my numbers are the same as yours. There's somewhere a bare minimum 20 million illegal invaders in the country. Could be upwards of 40 million. We got approached yesterday by a group called Border 911. So you can go to border911.com, and the guy named Kyle Rays owns and operates Law Enforcement Today. They get around 100 million impressions a month. I mean, it's a big deal. And so he introduced me to the guys at border911.com, and I hadn't shared this with you yet, but Todd Callender, who's the CEO of a global insurance company, CEO of multiple companies, right? He asked me to become the CMO CRO for Vax Choice, which is a company that has approximately 150 doctors working with it. So just what I needed, more to do on my plate, but it's an important mission at the end of the day. So Vax Choice is a channel on Cloud Hub But under that channel, there are different shows. So one of the shows is Todd's show, which is called Truth Be Told. It's on every Friday. From Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon, averages between 500,000 and a million views. So Todd Holman, Trump's head of ICE, director of ICE, uh, is going to be our guest. He's the main spokesperson for Border 911, and we're going to have him on Truth Be Told, Todd show on Vax Choice here shortly to discuss all of the things that they're doing and putting together. There's a doctor in Texas. I can't remember his last name. Everybody calls him Dr. Pete, but he was a lieutenant colonel. And what I've been told was that he was the individual who basically went to Greg Abbott and said, you either protect our border, or I will make sure you will never win another election in Texas. So he's going to be on as well, because he's been, sleeves rolled up in the middle of all of this at the border. So this border issue is fixing to turn really, really ugly. There's now intel, I just caught it this morning, where Glock switches are being distributed by the Chinese to gangs in America. So Glock switch is this tiny little piece that goes on the back of your rail on a Glock and turns it into a full auto. And they're showing up all over the place, and they cost peanuts to manufacture. So why are most of these invaders military age fighting men, and then being given everything, right? I mean, everything's covered for them, including visas that are prepaid with $5,000 to $10,000. Sheriff Mark Lamb is a friend of ours. He broke a story 2 months ago of the NGOs giving the invaders these cards, visas with 5 to 10K preloaded on them. Got lambasted by the mainstream media. He's just making it up. He's racist, blah, blah. Now everybody's even admitting to it. I mean, you got Mark, what's his name, Adams, and the mayor of New York City, bragging how he's going to give the money out and it's going to make things better. Okay.
They're giving him like $10,000 a piece.
Yep, exactly.
Where's that money coming from?
Taxpayers. We live in a bizarro world where everything's upside down these days. The problem is that if you take communications networks down, you take the internet down, and there's no communication, that means there's no flow of goods. So we're right back to what I've always said. We're never more than 3 missed meals away from anarchy. There's 3 days worth of food on the shelves at grocery stores. But again, if there's no comms, all that stuff grinds to a halt. And now you end up people who won't even think twice of shooting each other over food. I mean, they'll beat the crap out of each other over a shitty TV on a Black Friday sale, sort of thing.
Of course.
So imagine that, the sleeper cells are activated and they start launching simultaneous attacks across the country. All the comms, internet, everything goes down. There's no food available. The other piece to the food thing, and I've been saying this for years, you can't fight if you're hungry. Watch any survival show where someone gets, like alone, gets dropped in the middle of nowhere with nothing but the clothes on their back. And it's always predicated on doing the minimal amount of activity so you're not burning calories, but at the same time trying to find something to eat to get your caloric intake up.
Right.
You can't fight if you're hungry. You just can't. And hungry people will do just about anything to feed themselves and feed their families. The system is way more fragile than what people understand. They have no idea how fragile it is.
No, I completely agree. I mean, man. We have a lot of viewers, and I it's hard to be black and white in this issue because I want to be very hopeful, which I am, but it's hard not to see exactly what is happening, and there's no way around at some point, unless I'm wrong, and that's fine. There's no way around a potential coming chaos. We have a financial situation in America that is, we have generals saying there's going to be a black swan. I mean, it's not me saying it out loud. Like, generals are saying this. Trump a couple years ago said the market's going to fall off a ledge. We have illegals everywhere. So we have a supply chain that is
iffy at best.
Tipping at best. There's no way around this, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can combine all the stuff that we've discussed, ad infinitum, right? So we've got a first world country, third world power grid. We have 9 choke points in the 3 power grids, east, west, and Texas. Take those 3, substations out, well, 3 for each, so 9 in total. Nobody has power unless they're in close proximity to a power station or they have an alternate source of power, solar, generators, whatever the case may be. So imagine that. So the grids, all 3 grids go down, the internet goes down.
Correct.
All the telcos go down. So like we had last week, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and all the subcarriers that feed off of their networks. You tell me. I mean, it doesn't take much to paint a pretty crappy situation. Now combine on top of that, where you have these sleeper cells, which is what I started to speak to, get activated. And let's say there's 12 sleeper cells here in Volusia County, and they attack 12 locations simultaneously. The sheriff's comms will still be up because they've got repeaters all over the place on electric poles, right? But they won't have the resources to respond to 12 active killer situations, right?
Right.
Maybe they can respond to 1. And we're about 600,000 here in Volusia County. So then that they regroup, and the next day they go up the road here to Flagler County, and those 11 sleeper cells now attack 11 locations. And Flagler Sheriff's Office can respond to 1, so now they're down to 10, right? Because they're going to lose a sleeper cell each day when law enforcement takes them out. Again, imagine this happening across the country. This is all available open source intel, but confirmed also from our connections at the JTTF. Imagine that happening 3 days in a row. No food on the grocery store shelves, no goods moving anywhere because there's no communication. You have no communication with anybody else, so you have no idea what's going on out there. How are you going to do your reconnaissance and figure out what the real deal is? I mean, about the only thing you can do is have a power source, solar, generator, whatever the case may be. Generator, it's wise to go with propane powered stuff, or at least dual powered. That guy there's one that just got sent to us for testing. So it's dual powered gas and propane. The advantage of propane is that it never goes bad. So you can stack up the tanks for your grill and run them on a generator like that. So if you conserve electricity, and we know this in Florida because we have hurricanes every year sort of thing, you run a generator like that for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, you'll burn 1 gallon of propane a day, and that will keep battery backups to the point where you can keep your refrigerator, freezer, bare bones stuff going, right? And just keep topping your batteries up. So if you have alternate source of power, whether it's a generator, solar panels, and listen, solar panels are not the be all and end all. Okay. If you have a pitched roof here in Florida, you can solid mount your panels to them. But if you have a flat roof, you can't have more than a 10-degree declination for wind loads, okay, for hurricanes. Well, I can tell you right now that if you take a solar panel from here and move it 1 inch, you could potentially, increase the charging capacity by 40%. And then as the sun moves even more, you move it another inch like this. So if you go to your home state, New York, especially upstate New York, you'll see these solar farms where you've got these panels that are on a pole with a servo motor, and they rotate in all 3 planes, pre-programmed by the day, what day of the year it is, and what the time is, to have maximum exposure to the sun. But I'm telling you right now in Florida here, like if you get a couple small solar panels and you hook them up to a power station, it's a trickle, man. You're not going to have like some super fast recharge. Whereas a propane generator, again, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, you should be able to keep your batteries up to par to keep everything going. So where am I going with that? Okay, so you probably have family. At the very least, you have friends. They might be other church members, whatever the case may be. But short of physically going to see them, which may be pretty treacherous, because you got to keep in mind, like if we're in this situation, there'll be no rule of law. 3 days without food? Are you kidding me? There will be. It's called WROL, World Without Rule of Law. You're probably not going to want to travel and be intercepted by marauders. So how do you communicate? Well, walkie-talkies, HTs as they're referred to, these don't have a ton of power. The antennas are not super high. Everything in the radio world is predicated on line of sight. So if you're standing behind a building with one of these, the radio frequencies can't penetrate that building, and somebody's on the other side of the building, you're probably going to have no contact with them. The same goes larger scale macro wise when you start talking mountains and whatnot. So California, you have long stretches where you have repeaters in the mountains, and then you have long flat stretches in the Badlands, right? And you can get at huge distance. Like if there's nothing between you and a repeater that's 100 miles away, you can hit it with one of those HTs, walkie talkies, and then go wherever that repeater is capable of talking to. But we just did a big test last Sunday, Dr. Michael Fabian and I. So we used some 50-watt mobiles, 50-watt base stations, a bunch of walkie-talkies. We even found some 25-watt walkie-talkies. They've got a battery on them the size of your laptop because they're so strong. But instead of being like in that 5-watt range, 25-watt range, awesome clarity, double the range is what we got. But that being said, we were trying to get from Ormond Beach to De Leon Springs. And there are a bunch of tools out there. Happy to send you the URLs to them where you punch in the coordinates for one location, punch in the coordinates for another location, and it maps everything out for you for the height of buildings and trees and all kinds of stuff. And if your antennas are not high enough to go over those things, you're not going to have communication. So I think we got at the end of the day 10 miles. But my antenna at the house was only 26 feet high. So I've got another tower coming to bump it up to 39 feet. But Mike, on the other hand, he had a magnetic antenna on top of his truck. So maybe, 8 feet off the ground to the top. And when we mapped it all out, he needs to be at least 18 feet above grade there. And I need to be above 30 feet grade here just to communicate between those two spots. So comms is not a simple thing where you just go and buy radios and leave the stock antenna. Like there's a meter that you can put on that tells you how well matched the antenna is, the radio and wattage and stuff. Holy cow. We've got some radios, we've put our meter on it, and it's outputting like 2 watts of power and should be 6 watts of power. And we pull it off and put a decent antenna on, and all of a sudden it goes to 7 watts of power. But antennas are the most important, and line of sight's the most important. But here's the next thing. When you go to Walmart or wherever, I don't shop at Walmart, and you buy those little bubble radios, they're on what's called the FRS, so Family Radio System. And FRS uses the same channels as GMRS. Okay, so there's 16 channels, and then there's a bunch of repeaters that come after that. It's all pre-programmed into your radios. Long story short, can you imagine all hell breaking loose and people trying to communicate with each other over a handful of channels? You won't be able to make out a word anybody's saying, let alone get there. So if somebody seriously needs to maintain communications, the way to go is you go to somebody like buy2aradios.com, kempwireless.com. So Kemp specialized in refurbished police radios. So like a XTS 5000 would be a Motorola handset that you would see the cops carrying. XTL 5000 is what the cops would have in their car. They're what are called their business class radios. So it costs about $200 to have somebody to do your application to the FCC. But when you get it back, all of your radios are pre-programmed with encryption, and you get your own channels. So you've got a piece of frequency bandwidth that you're licensed to use that other radios won't be tuned into because it's usually like an oddball frequency with encryption on top of it. That's how you need something at that grade if you really think you're going to maintain comms. I mean, the only other option is to tether or something to the satellites. But again, if you're considering all contingencies, if a CME, a coronal mass ejection, hits the satellites, guess what happens to the satellite?
Toast.
Yeah, they're done. They can shield them all they want, but a big enough CME, plasma ejection, is just going to toast it. So, anyway.
Toast. Survival. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, complex stuff, to be honest with you.
Go check out survivordispatch.com. Go to YouTube and follow Survivor Dispatch. How many shows a week are you doing?
64 videos a week. And all of our, 64 videos per month, but multiple videos per week that go to Cloud Hub that we don't put on YouTube because they're gun-related content. We run polls constantly. Latest poll that we ran with our audience, firearms scored like over 50%, but we can't put it on YouTube because YouTube just smacks it down.
Unbelievable.
That's that EMP video. That's the EMP video where we hit it with 360,000 volts. I gave you a little heads up here, we're building a 1.2 million volt Marks
Of course you are.
generator right now.
Of course you
So, so each capacitor is 20,000 volts. Okay. So imagine that you have 60 of them, and then you have a 20,000 volt transformer. It's nothing special on its own. And you charge each capacitor to 20,000 volts, and they all let off their ESD, electrostatic discharge, simultaneously. It's 1.2 million volts. So the EMP shield passed with flying colors at 360,000 volts. Military standards say you should be able to withstand 90,000 volts for an EMP, but we know that the governments are lying to us as far as the size of their nuclear warheads. So most people feel that you need to be able to withstand a 200,000 voltmeter EMP. We did a 360,000 volt test, which it passed, and we're going to try to kill it with 1.2 million volts. We talked to the guys at EMP Shield, and they said, go right ahead. They seemed to have full confidence in it. The crazy thing is, if you're standing anywhere near that thing, you're dead. You're DRT.
I love it.
But
I love
at
it.
that voltage, that voltage, the electricity will try to couple onto everything it possibly can that's grounded, which means you and me and anybody else in close proximity. Dangerous.
Watch their stuff, man. Watch their stuff, everybody. It's like, I'm going to go watch that EMP. It's like glorious to watch. Chris Evan, survivaldispatch.com. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you always.
Stay frosty.
Keep up the good work, man. Bye-bye. That's Chris Evan, Survival Dispatch, survivaldispatch.com. Great stuff. Amazing stuff. Keeping it going. Yeah, there's a comment in the chat. I'm from upstate. Well, it's not really upstate New York. I'm from the southern tier of New York. Everyone calls it upstate, but upstate is like the Adirondacks. I'm from southern tier, so I went to school in the Cortland area at the SUNY system. If you didn't know, Remington, I think they're the biggest gun company. I haven't looked. I think they're big. They are out of, I forgot. Let's see. I want to say Erie, but I don't think that's it. I'll look it up. Remington Gun Company. Erie. I don't want to say Erie. That's not correct. It's not North Carolina. Not that one. Remington Arms. Elion, New York? I don't know Elion well. Let me look up. Let me look up where that is, because I don't know that place. Elion, New York. Oops. Google sucks. Elion, Mohawk area. Okay, so we are northern, eastern New York. Never been there. It is near Utica. Okay, I know Utica very well. I know Syracuse pretty well. Yeah, but keep in mind, just a heads up out there. New York is collapsing. New York was collapsing when I was there. My last time in New York was my last time living in New York was 2001. I moved to Boston in 2001. I left Boston and I stopped in New York on the way back in 2003. I've been in Florida it's crazy. Like, you don't think about how time goes by. I've been in Florida now for going on 21 or 22 years, which is, it's crazy. I think I'm almost lived in Florida more than I've lived in New York in my life. Maybe have. But that's a huge, these small towns. But the problem is, this is why. Here's a couple reasons why places like this in New York fall. No one wants to live there. Not even because taxes, everybody. I dare you to go live in New York State for a year and live there from, let's see, August, September through March, April, sometimes May and June. There's no sun. there's no sunlight. It's constant cloudiness. It's a depressing feeling. It doesn't feel good. It sucks. That's one. I mean, that's not the reason I left, but that's one of the reasons. You realize the antidepressants are through the roof in the northeastern states. They tax the hell out of you. Their governments suck. New York's government sucks. It is communism to the max. It's worse than California, and that's hard to say because whatever. It's crazy. And by the way, for all those out there like, oh, Dr. Dean, but New York, try to fix it. I ain't trying to fix it. Hell no. Let it go. I mean, I know that sounds terrible. Let it go. I have no desire to keep New York floating. And I have family that still lives there that I love dearly. Okay. I have some faith. Here's my faith. I'm a realist, but I also have faith. Okay. I'll answer some health questions in just a little bit. We're doing a shorter show today. We'll get the full hour in, but I have to do the absolute truth with Emerald Robinson at 1:30. So I'll do some questions toward the end. We have a lot of viewers right now. I love this. Hit that like button, please. Hit the join button as well. I'm always weird on the whole subscribe join. You know what? This is how I operate. I don't want to have to ask you. Not because I can't. Just because if you like the thing, why wouldn't you hit like? Why wouldn't you hit join? If I go to somebody's page, I hit like and join so I can see what they're going to put out there. So anyway, people are flowing in. I have hope. Here's my hope, okay? I talk to a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts, a lot of people. Let me go down this road. Yes, Jacob Rothschild apparently passed away yesterday morning for us because he's in UK time or wherever he's from. Am I excited about that? Sure, he's a problem. Jacob Rothschild is not the top of the pyramid, everybody. He's not the top of the pyramid at all. There are people, humans, and non-human things well above Jacob Rothschild. Right? Jacob Rothschild is the puppet similar to Soros's of the world. You got to go higher than that. Then people are like, oh, what about the Orsinis? Sure, I think there's higher than that too. Right? I think there's higher than that. I think this planet is controlled by something very sinister. That needs to be handled. However, here's my issue. Is anybody out there an observer? Here's my question for you. Is anybody out there an observer? What does observer mean? Are you a person who can observe the obvious? Observe the obvious. All right. What I mean by observing the obvious is, do you just see the blatant obvious and standing in front of you? Have you ever watched other people who can't observe the obvious? They don't see, like, have you ever been like in a busy area and you're just like, someone's right in the middle of everybody and you're like, dude, like get to the side. Like, can you not see that people are like moving? Observing the obvious. Okay. Let me say that. Yes. Jacob Rothschild is easily replaced. Isn't Nathaniel like right behind him? Here is my observing of the obvious. Okay, here it is. I have a problem that I cannot get over. And no matter how far I try to get away from this keeps punching me in the face. Joe Biden is supposed to be the president of the United States. Now, I'm not getting into all the banking system right now and who really controls the world. That's a whole, we've talked a lot about that. I'll talk about it as we go forward. I'm just talking about just simple stuff right now from a movie standpoint. Okay. Joe Biden is supposed to be the sitting president. Okay. Sure. Fine. Let's go with that. Then why is he randomly walking by himself, and why does he show up to events with essentially little to no Secret Service? On the opposite, why does Donald Trump, a past president? Now, when you think of past presidents, right? Donald Trump is a past president. George Bush is a past president. I'm talking about the living ones. Bill Clinton is a past president. Who else is alive? Jimmy Carter's on ice. You can't convince me he's alive. Let's say he is, right? Now he's in a nursing home, hospice care, or whatever, or they'll announce it anytime. But let's go with Bush, Obama, Clinton. I think those are our three that are living. There may be others. I don't recall. Okay. Why? First of all, has anyone seen President Obama? I haven't seen him. Has anyone seen, other than a camera, a picture every once in a while, has anyone seen him? I'm not saying he's not still, I'm just asking, has anybody seen him? Remember, observe the obvious. I haven't seen him. I've seen Bill Clinton walking around. I haven't seen them personally. I've seen him on TV, right? I've seen Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. I've seen George Bush walking around. Okay. Where is their Secret Service detail, and where is their motorcade? Have you seen Bill Clinton's motorcade? Okay. Now, okay, I have not seen there, so I can only go by what I see. I have seen past President Donald Trump's motorcade. For a past president, that is one hell of a motorcade with the ambulance in the back. I have not seen the same motorcade for Joe Biden. The observing the obvious tells me who's running everything. And I know everyone says, oh, they're running stuff. And I'm not saying they're not. Hey, I can be in the reality of like, this could be, most likely could be an Obama shadow government. Here's my problem with that. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Here's my other observing the obvious, right? Okay, Joe Biden is supposedly president of the United States. All right, we know that presidents are selected. They're not in control, right? Okay, if you are running an operation to destroy the United States of America, turned into a Marxist communist country, if that's what you were doing, let's say you're the bad guys. Let's say you're Jacob Rothschild who was alive. Let's say you're the queen. Let's say you're some reptilian, whatever at the top. Let's say you're running the world, and you put the presidents in place. Your job of putting a president in place is to trick the public so you can get done what you want to get done. All right? That means the president has to be pretty good at their job. Not job as in doing things behind the scenes, but the president is a public relations spokesperson. Let's just call it what it is, right? The president's job is, the real job is a totally different thing. The president's job today in the fake world is to be basically a public relations guy. Go in front of a camera, make it all look good, make it sound good, make America happy. That's what a president does. Okay, great. That's fine. If you're the cabals and you're trying to make America fall for the fact that we have a legitimate president, there's no effing way. How many times does Biden have to sound like a complete retarded moron before you pull him from the stage? I'm just asking a question. You're telling me at this point, I'm asking questions. That's all I'm asking. You're telling me, and I'm not saying I'm right, by the way. I could be 100% wrong. This could be all legitimately happening right in front of our faces. Hey, my job every day, my career in life is I'm a doctor, right? By the way, for all the medical assholes out there, chiropractors, which I am one, have more education than medical doctors. We have more education than medical doctors unless they're surgeons, and then they have longer, but they're cutting on people. That's a different part of their education. So, my job as a doctor, it's really simple. The first thing I have to do is when someone comes to me that needs help with their health. First job, everybody. It's